OMORI is disappointing in some aspects. The story is top-notch despite some hiccups here and there. No one's arguing how profound the ending is, but the area where it really dips is in the moment-to-moment gameplay. The combat's emotion system is cool, but lacks the difficulty needed to really take advantage of having to use the different status effects in battles. Which is why I downloaded a mod that not only lets you change the health and damage of enemies, but adds entirely new mechanics to the game. Provided this is installed, you'll cherish every item and equipable that you come across, no matter what you're fighting, be it a sprout or even just a bunny. And on top of showing you this mod, I have 3 others that I'm going to cover in this video as well, including the heavily anticipated role reversal fan project, OMARI, which switches Sunny and Mari's places in the plot. The customizable difficulty mod by Matthew Purple lets you choose from several different difficulties, with normal being what you expect from the main game. I scaled it up to hard from the start, but went higher as I got my party stronger. Early on, you'll pretty much have to grind out these bunnies for EXP, which ends up working out pretty well because you can talk to the bunny hater in Vast Forest to get his entire line of quest rewards for doing this anyway, provided you're dedicated, of course. I had to constantly run back to Mari's picnic between battles to make sure I was at full health for each fight, and if I'm being completely honest, getting floored by bunnies was not very good for my morale. Yet, the damage enemies dealt wasn't the only thing that changed. If you go into the mod configuration menu, you'll see the option to enable several different settings. One of them is called Scary Criticals, which is what it sounds like. If a critical hit happens to strike one of your party members, another person on your team will get the Afraid status ailment. I personally thought that this was a neat way to throw some more unpredictability into the battle system, but I can understand if you're hearing this and thinking that it sounds like a very artificial way to make the fighting more difficult. There's also stale moves, which makes it so that using the same attacks on each subsequent turn with a character will make it do less and less damage than if you tried to switch things up. And number of skills, which, you guessed it, lets you adjust the number of skills a party member can have at once. I find it interesting when you don't have that much room to equip your powers, so you have to make interesting decisions, like switching out your default guard move, for instance. So I just stuck with the 4 option. It was fun to revisit a game I loved with more emphasis on following the rules of its battle system. I should mention that even with this mod, there are still some holes in OMORI's design that come through. Despite the increased difficulty, the team attack is still as overpowered as ever, and all too often it was easy to fall back on the same tactics in most fights. Yes, even with the stale moves option. Enemies forcing you to try different techniques in ways that aren't annoying is one of the hallmarks of good video game design for me, and unfortunately, despite the changes made, this problem is still ever present. But gameplay is hardly the thing that leaves you feeling awful after playing this. OMORI can leave your head spinning for weeks upon your first time completing it, so it's not unusual to want more if it's just staying on your mind. After I got my fill of the difficulty mod, I started surfing the web, looking for something, anything to satiate my want for more OMORI related content, and yes, that's exactly what I found with OMORI Reverie, which I won't linger on for too long as I have a video on it. I'll link that in the corner now. Just know that basically, it's an epilogue to the events of the finale in the vanilla game that adheres closely to the art style, dialogue, and musical score that we've come to know from the original release. Currently, it's not known whether Reverie will tackle the infamous question of what OMORI, Kel, and Hero's reactions to the truth are at the original game's ending, but that's a delicate story thread to navigate all its own, and honestly, there's still plenty of cool stuff they can do while leaving all of that stuff as open-ended as the first game left it. One of my favorite details is that since it's taking place after Sunny explained the truth, he's no longer OMORI despite this mod taking place in Headspace again. It's great, and from what I've seen so far, it's the highest quality OMORI mod that currently exists. But it's also not the only high quality OMORI mod that's out there, believe it or not. For once, I actually found something good on Twitter in the form of hiccups. I definitely butchered that just now. An OMORI alternate universe that's focused on the best character in the whole game, Kel. You'll see familiar locales you've come to know, but with somewhat of a spin, like Orange Space. Since Kel's the titular character, I imagine this will have a more lighthearted tone on account of how he was basically an oasis of happiness and a sea of depression, which honestly is completely fine with me at this point after being completely wrecked by Sunny's storyline. Since this is an AU and not a change of perspective, it doesn't seem like the developers will be bound by the story beats of OMORI, so the possibilities truly are endless. Sadly, it's still in the very early stages of development, but hopefully we'll get a playable demo before long. One of the most common mods I hear about, and perhaps it's the most popular, is one that doesn't even have any gameplay that's been revealed, OMORI. The trailer for this mod is really interesting because the artists seem more interested in letting their own styles come through instead of following OMOCAT's. I've made it no secret on this channel that I think it's almost always best when the fans adhere to what an official release would look like, but the passion is definitely still coming through regardless. We also have no idea whether this trailer reflects what the final release will look like, so it's not like a more traditional look is completely off the table. Essentially, this will be a what-if scenario where Sunny and Mari's roles are reversed, with Hiro being the eventual accomplice that discovers the stair tragedy. I think the best thing this mod can achieve is giving us major story beats from the vanilla game with unique perspectives and solutions that Mari brings to the table, solutions that only Mari would have been able to achieve. This is purely speculation on my part, but since Mari is a very sweet and caring person, perhaps there could be an option to talk enemies out of fighting, not unlike Undertale. Since Hiro's taking on the role of Basil in this mod, it'll be nice to see Basil in a happier state of mind. At the very least, it'll be more believable that two older people, like Mari and Hiro, are able to get someone small like Sunny in the tree, because honestly, I still have no idea how Basil and Sunny managed that one. The final boss could even be against the dream world version of Mari, who decided to put on a fake personal identity. Perhaps Mari became more sweet over the years, almost suspiciously so, after accidentally causing her brother's demise to cope with pain. Maybe the background on the battle screen could have torn and patched up picnic blankets with flowers spiraling up and withering at the tip through the blanket's tears. The dialogue escalates with Dream Mari trying desperately to comfort the player, leaning into her caring demeanor, yet it's malformed by what she's been hiding all this time, twisted to justify what she's done, overreaching, trying too hard to be motherly, thinking that it somehow excuses what she committed, almost smothering the camera as she gets closer. But I honestly have no idea what they'll do. There are some inherently interesting hurdles to this project though. Lots of people who play this will be coming off the heels of the normal game, and almost everyone will know the twist that underpins the whole thing. Part of why the stair event is so moving is because we don't know what's going on until very late in the story. Almost the very end. The twist will not be nearly as impactful since the player will know the fan developers are doing something very similar already, so hopefully they throw a couple of wrenches in the machine to mix things up along the way. The developers seem super nice and did answer some community questions back in January, so I'll link that below if you're interested, and I'm crossing my fingers that we get a more substantial update before long. But if you want to know more about any of these mods as information becomes available, be sure to subscribe.